The Branding Your Business podcast is for small business owners looking to build a customer favorite brand and a value-driven business. From solo shows covering marketing tactics to experts sharing their brand stories, each episode delivers actionable insights for entrepreneurs who want to impact the world. We're sharing how strategic moves and authentic connections can build a profitable business minus the burnout. Tune into the Branding Your Business podcast with me, Praise Santos McKenna of Come Plum, to design a brand your audience adores while building a life you love. Hey there, welcome back to the Branding Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Praise Santos McKenna. I am the founder of the branding studio Come Plum in San Francisco, California. And you know me, we love real, authentic conversations, and we are in for a treat with my friend Katie Duda today. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She is an integrative health practitioner dedicated to helping women in their 30s and 40s heal their digestion, balance hormones, and boost energy. Drawing from her personal journey of overcoming digestive distress, hormonal imbalances, and absent periods, Katie empowers clients with simple, personalized strategies rooted in nutrition, lifestyle, and gut health optimization. We say this a lot on the podcast that yes, we're teaching you about business and branding, but we really want you to become whole people. And so she has something up her sleeve. As the author of Fix Your Gut, Transform Your Life, and founder of The Real Raw You, she combines practical advice with compassion to guide women toward lasting wellness, not just that flash in the pan stuff, y'all. It's that stuff without calorie counting or restriction. Katie's approach is refreshingly holistic, actionable, and tailored to the modern woman. Katie, you are my kind of person. And honestly, I just want to thank you for your bravery, because a lot of us start businesses and brands with a bit of our personal story. Oftentimes we are our first testimonial and we are our first client. When you were going through this transformation, did you think, like, as you're going through it, oh, I want to help women go through this transformation too? Or was something later on as an aha moment? How did that come together?
Yeah, that's such a good question. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's such an honor. So I knew almost instantaneously when I was in my rock bottom moments of near-death experience. Actually, I had battled anorexia on and off in my teen years. It really stemmed actually as a really young little girl, and we can get into that of how that led to also all my digestive issues, because they really go hand in hand, disordered eating and malnourishment and also digestive distress. And I remember sitting in that hospital room with the cardiologist, and I was 19 years old, and I was like, I'm a tallish girl. I'm 5'9". And I think I was 84 pounds. And the cardiologist came in and told my parents that I needed a pacemaker because my resting heart rate dropped to 34 beats per minute at night. And I had to wear this EKG to basically monitor the dips to make sure, like, to alarm my parents in case I were to die. And I remember sitting there and watching their faces, and I didn't know what a pacemaker was. I was in college. I was trying to just get back down to go to Texas Christian University. I'm from a small town in Minnesota. And it just kind of washed over me of like feeling this earth shattering, like, how did I get here? Because with disordered eating, it's a very like selfish disorder. It's self-fulfilling and it's never ending. So you keep setting new goals, new calorie restrictions, new weight loss, et cetera, et cetera. And the irony is that you never feel fulfilled, kind of like chasing anything in life, that's worldly, shiny objects that never leads to true fulfillment. And that's how it was for me. And so I truly didn't know how I got to this place of needing almost a pacemaker in my heart at 19 and not knowing if I was going to make it. And from that, it just completely shook me to my core, woke me up and realized, like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm going to do everything in my power to live a life that I'm designed to live and give back to help people. And through that recovery process, it was pretty quick because that was when I found the Lord. That was when I got saved, and I just completely dedicated my life to Christ. And through that, I felt washed over me. That was my mission in life, whether it was to be in a part-time capacity or just helping people in conversations, whether it started as friends and family to eventually becoming my full-time career. I knew in that moment in the hospital room that I was going to heal myself. I was going to get answers I wasn't given. And through that whole discovery process, I felt like that was my calling to then in turn go and help other women.
That
is huge. Thank you so much for sharing that part of you and your story. And it sounds so transformative. Like we bless 19-year-old Katie, decades back of just making that decision because it seems like it had to have that big mental shift. Like, how
Yeah.
did I get here? I don't have to live like this anymore. And there's other people who are going through this who need this shift too. And it seems like from what I know a little bit about your story, you have kept on trying to align yourself with like your purpose. You've kept on trying to align yourself with like, this doesn't serve me anymore. Let me go more into this. What are other big shifts that have happened that you had to say no to something to say yes to something else?
Yes, totally. I've always been a very intuitive person, but I haven't always listened to that intuition. And, that's always easier said than done because you have so many different external noises, whether it's parents, society, expectations. We do these things out of hope for love and desire. It's that inner kind of wounded child trying to seek love. And so for me early on, even in school, I really, really had to spend probably 10 hours to someone's 1 hour just to study to get an A on a test. And so I always found school just being everything other than the sciences and the nutrition was just not my thing. And so I went into business as my major just by default because that's what my parents did. They were CEOs of big corporations and I didn't know what I wanted, as most people don't and shouldn't at 18, and then got out of college and by default just started up in the kind of corporate tech world and kind of followed the path that that career gave me, and mentors within those organizations kind of pursued me and like propelled me the entire time through those 10 years as I was progressing and getting more salaries and changing locations and all these big, things that I thought were going to unlock the fulfillment that I kept chasing. I felt so empty and feeling like this is not what I meant to be doing, but I guess I should because this is just what you do. And I was sitting behind a desk and I was like, this is a death sentence. I am meant to be doing something else. And I listened to what my parents said about me and what everyone else said about me, which, bless them, they just wanted what they thought was the best for me, which was being in a corporate setting with a pencil skirt and like crunching numbers and giving big executive presentations. And I just wanted to be out chatting with people and helping them with nutrition. So I went 10 years of living this parallel life. Eventually, halfway through, I went back to school part time while keeping my corporate tech job in San Francisco and started coaching on the side. And that really helped for a little bit, just giving me that fuel for my purpose. But I would then find myself coaching women on the implications of chronic stress, not living life in your authentic alignment. And then I would be going to 10-hour days in San Francisco in a job that was truly just not meant for me. And I felt like every meeting I would go into, I was gearing up for battle. That's the best way I can describe it. And so I started having all sorts of reoccurring gut issues as a result of the stress. So I felt like a total fraud because I was scaling this business that I loved and I was too scared to take the leap to go full time because I kept telling myself, oh, I live in San Francisco. Oh, I'm still so young. We need this income, whatever, all these voices that you come up with. I'm not experienced enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not old enough. Nobody will take me seriously. But here I had hundreds of testimonials. And so I just never fully believed in myself enough until I hit a point of I was coming up on my 10-year mark, 5 years in my business. I had 2 kids, 3 and under. And I really, their childhoods were kind of a blur to me because I was just a zombie. And I really said, I went through all of this work to get my body healthy again, restore a period, become fertile, have these amazing pregnancies, then help these babies grow up to not have the same body dysmorphia images that I did. And I'm too busy and too checked out and too much in autopilot to even really enjoy their lives. So it was a kind of another defined moment of like, pick a path. There's never going to be someone giving you permission to do the scary thing. And you just have to go for it. And you can always pivot. And I said, I'm going to give myself a full year and not look at another job or give myself any excuse to pull the plug. And so I went all in and I gave my notice and I was out 2 weeks later. And I can't believe I didn't do it sooner. My body took a while, my nervous system, to unravel from that. Probably a good 3 months of really saying, like, you're safe and you can do less things and this is what you're supposed to be doing. But I should have done it probably at least 5 years sooner. Eventually I came to that conclusion.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite soapboxes is to convince people in traditional settings to first have a lot of self-awareness, right? You knew what lit you up. And we have to be aware of the water we swim in. There are these voices, cultural expectations, family expectations of the right way to go. And you did it. And at the same time, your intuition was telling you this isn't right. Like something is not sitting right. Not only your intuition, your body was telling you, hey, actually, the more you're in this setting, we're actually not functioning in our full capacity. And I am thinking of a few of my friends in more corporate settings here in San Francisco who are on medical leave or are having different health problems. Like their body is just trying to tell them, like,
Mhm.
hey, this is not the life you were meant to live. This is not thriving. Like there is something else for you. And how many warning signs do we have to give you? And at the same time, we have to acknowledge, like, I get it. There are demands, right? You're raising a family. There's different decisions you have to make, but we need more stories like yours to hear what it's like when you're in it, when you're making those decisions.
Yeah.
And really trying to do what's best for yourself and for your family. But I love how you were saying, I was coaching other people on these things and living like this double life. And after a while, you're like, I can't do it. I just have to take the leap and go for it. How long has that been? When did you make that decision?
Yeah. So let's see. I illuminated on it after my first, and I really dug my heels in the sand. I did not want to go back after my maternity leave. And I always said, I'm going to take it month by month. We're going to have a meeting with my husband on the calendar every month and check in. It was honestly tolerable for a while. And then the culture just got so toxic at the place that I was at when I came back from leave my second time. There was a stark difference. For a while, I was justifying it saying I'm able to kind of check in, do my work. I was really proficient at it and it wasn't challenging for me, which is so not like me, but I would challenge myself in my business. I'm one that always wants to be challenged, but I was okay. I saw it for what it was. It was black and white. It was a paycheck. It was a means to an end. I could go check in, check out. And then those lines got really blurred when I came back from leave the summer of 2023. I think dynamics had started to shift. The kind of recessionary headwinds started to come through from kind of the post-COVID. Every company was really starting to kind of revert back to office and people were just getting really nasty. So I could tolerate the work, but I can't tolerate working with toxic people, which is always why people should leave. So really, I had my heart set on it starting in the summer of 2023. I grinded through, which I shouldn't have those last 6 months of the year. I gave my notice at the jump of 24, and then I was out by February of 24. So it's been a little under a year. And like you said, it's been so freeing for my nervous system, but it's mentally been the hardest decision for me because whether you want to believe it or not, like the ego loves titles and salary, and that's your safety. And that was who I was. I was Katie Duda, XYZ at X company for so long. And me and my husband were equal contributors from a financial perspective. That was always very important to me. And so for me to shift my role into saying, no, my new role is providing value in the home and teaching my kids values and instilling that love and faith into them that, oh, by the way, doesn't pay you. And oh, by the way, you get no breaks. That was a huge shift for me. And doing my writing and building a business on weekends, when it should be family time, it was a huge shift for our family. So I'm not going to tell you that it hasn't been probably one of the most challenging seasons of our lives, just from so much transition. But also, I have no shadow of a doubt that this isn't what was meant for us, right? It's like the saying of being a Christian, people think is easy. It's the hardest thing ever. You're following a path that logically doesn't always make sense. Society is not going to encourage it, but you have this peace and unwavering knowing that it's right. It's just really freaking hard.
100%. Yeah. And this is why we need to have these conversations. Like, okay, just to be clear, Praise and Katie are not telling you it's going to be easy and all roses, but sometimes, have you heard of this? It's choosing pain versus suffering, where we could rip off the Band-Aid, there's a lot of pain, but we know in the long run it's going to be better. But oftentimes we choose suffering where we like stay in the job over and over. And it's like a long-term like peel and itch and hurt versus that immediate thing. So it's not that it's without pain either choice, but it's just that what are we going to do in the long term? What is that shift? And I hear you. The ego, it's very big. We want to find something. We still want our LinkedIn to be so impressive. And it can be such a big decision to make. And I just want to celebrate you. And I want our community to celebrate you because these are big, scary steps that you've taken. And you just said this so nonchalantly, right? Like, okay, she's been in business for a while, people, but she's been working both jobs. Now she's doing full-time parenting and her job as a coach here. And she also wrote a book. Can you tell us about the idea of your book? How has launching it been? And that is a big thing to celebrate. Please don't downplay that.
Thank you so much. I know that is one of my weaknesses, is just being able to like truly take a moment and build myself up. I am so proud. It has been a labor of love. I will also say that I had full-time childcare from the months of February through July, which is when I predominantly cranked on this book, and the execution, which is also now a small feat of like working with Amazon and getting all of that tidied up, happened once I had no childcare. So that happened at nights. But I also don't want to make it sound like I wrote a book while also mothering full-time, because I did have full-time childcare for many months. My book is called Fix Your Gut, Transform Your Life. And I alluded to it in the beginning of my introduction story, but I really don't remember a period of my life where I haven't suffered from debilitating gut issues. And mine really were in the form of anxiety and bloating. So much so that I constantly thought that I was pregnant when I wasn't. And it also is somewhat what stemmed an eating disorder, because I thought I could de-bloat the bloating as a young kid. I was a dancer, and so I was always in like little sports bras and always was comparing my body. And anywho, kind of the genesis of the book was, there's a lot of gut health books out there. Gut health is, as you're probably listening, you've heard of it. It's woo. It is incredibly integral into your life. It's not only from an immunity perspective, a skin perspective, but it's also hormones. If you're wanting to balance your hormones, you simply can't do that without your gut health being intact. It's helpful for fertility, for passing on a healthy gut microbiome to your baby, for allergy prevention, for autoimmune prevention. And all these things are on the rise: obesity, diabetes in kids, autism, all these neurological, and it's all tied back in some way, Alzheimer's, cancer, all tying back to our gut microbiome. So it's so critical. It's part of my story, what led me down the path of going back to school in functional medicine. And for me, really realizing my gut issues was because of the chronic stress that I lived in as a child, which then became kind of an anxious adult, into this career path that ultimately meant I just wasn't living in alignment with who I was, and that I was searching for that my whole life, until I've put that into the voids of over exercising and under eating. And everyone finds ways to disassociate, I'll say, trying to search for ultimately our purpose and alignment. And so gut health is so much more than taking a probiotic. In fact, sometimes probiotics, the ones you see on the market, could be making your gut issues worse, could be making you more bloated because you could be feeding the overgrowth. So there's a general awareness and importance of the gut microbiome, but most gut health books do not talk generally nearly enough around the importance of chronic stress. And that's not just knowing your stress, but also perceived stress. I'm sitting in traffic and I could be listening to a podcast and just optimizing my time. My body is total zen, and you could be in a complete state of fight or flight, right? The perceived situation matters. And also childhood trauma. And trauma doesn't need to be physical or verbal abuse. It can be you just didn't feel safe or having your needs met as a kid emotionally. And so it doesn't discriminate. Stress is a personalized, individualized decision that your body decides for you. And there's simple testing that you can do just to see what the state of your kind of nervous system is in. And without really understanding the importance of this, we can't really work with the gut, because our gut and our brain are connected through what's called a vagus nerve. And so your brain and your gut are constantly listening to each other. So if you're talking negatively about yourself, or you're thinking poorly about a situation, that sends down this fight or flight response to your gut, and it stops digestion. It halts everything. slows things down. It makes you constipated, eventually leads to the intestinal lining leaky, autoimmune diseases, thyroid issues, all these things. So my focus is really on, I want to simplify the message so that everybody, whether you have no knowledge, no pre-existing knowledge of gut health, or you're a gut health expert, it's very digestible, pun intended, and it's very easy to understand. So you're going to get a comprehensive overview of why the gut matters, and then a 30-day protocol to heal your gut with very simple, approachable, gut-friendly recipes and lifestyle hacks for the busy person on the go. It's not about overhauling your life. It's about finding simple little things like we did right before this interview. Take 3 deep breaths before your meal to activate the parasympathetic nervous system so you actually digest your food. So many people are shoveling food in their mouth and they don't even realize that they're not properly absorbing it. So they're having this beautiful salad or superfood shake and they're inhaling their food and they're only absorbing 10% of the nutrients. So it's a total waste. It's a huge bummer. So that's a little bit about the book. It's hopeful. It's intended to reach more consumers. That a lot of gut health books are out there on the market, but they're very overwhelming with medical jargon and technical jargon. And so it kind of loses reach. It's a little bit intimidating. And so my hope is that, and it seems to be landing very well, that women are picking this up. They're saying, this is life-changing. I had no idea. It's so easy to read. There's key takeaways at every single chapter. So you can always refer back to them. And it's landing in the right way. So I'm super stoked about it. It's been out for about 45 days. It's available on Amazon. And I'm still kind of an awe to type my name in Amazon and see a book, but hopeful that it continues to reach more women. And my goal is to reach 1 million women by the time this book reaches its end of its life. So,
and it sounds like such an important message. And this is what's so amazing about business owners and brand leaders, that you can hear your passion and that you can, of course, I can write this in a really approachable way because one, I'm qualified to know this stuff. I have the training. I also know my people don't want to be bogged down with medical jargon. They just need to know the truth of how the circumstances of their life are affecting a lot of what's going on in their body. And I feel like you brought up so many good points about stress, or brought up so many good points about the traumas that we go through too and how it shows up in our body. And if anything, if please go, we'll link all the things in the show notes too for Katie's resources. But if you're just listening to this podcast, if you can just get more self-awareness and get more realization of, okay, am I stressed out in my life? Are there things that are circumstantial or maybe in my past that are affecting me today? We talk about this a lot on the podcast as brand and business leaders. How we are personally affects the brands and businesses we lead. It really leaks through all that we create and how we serve our clients and how we show up too. And so it's so important for us to go back, have this recognition, and then get help and resources for what we know about ourselves. And this is so huge that you're putting this resource out there. It will reach more than 1 million people. I know it to be true.
Do you ever feel like you wear so many hats as a small business owner? I totally get that. Here at Come Plum, we want to keep you in your zone of genius, how you serve and show up for people. So leave the branding to us. In a collaborative way through brand coaching, we help you define your brand foundations, your brand strategy, and your brand expression, all that fun stuff like logo, websites, videos, photos, and more. If you go to comeplum.com and mention in the contact form that you heard about us through our Branding Your Business podcast, you get cool perks like an extra hour of coaching or maybe even 10% off your coaching package. We can't wait to collaborate with you to build a brand that you and your clients love.
And I imagine, just because I have so many friends with a book inside them, has this idea of the book been inside you for a while? And also bless your full-time childcare for helping it come about. Like, how has it gone from idea to being published? How did that go?
yes, I've always loved writing, and I have found ways to express it through newsletters and blog posting and things, but it never really scratched the itch. I just finally, 2 years into coaching, put this on my vision board, but it seemed really scary and very daunting. Like, do I have a publisher? How do you even start with that? And I really feel like this year was the year of just being done with my own bullshit and excuses in so many ways. Like at the beginning of the year, I made a vision board and I looked back at it because it's still on my screensaver, and I can confidently say that I've manifested every single thing on that vision board this year. And I really believe in the power of it, of putting out there what you want, asking for what you want, and ultimately just stop asking for permission and just doing. And this was the year of just doing. So I had been wanting to quit my full-time corporate job for 5 years. And eventually you just get sick and tired of telling yourself that and feeling that way and not following through on it. There's nothing more than I hate than mediocrity and complacency, like in general. And I was like, I am that. I am settling right now for my own excuses. And so this was something that I had in my archives. And I eventually just said, I'm going to have this quiet time for 6 months, which bless my full-time childcare, my mother-in-law, she is a saint. This is the time to do it. And so I just, sacked up and said, I'm putting it out there. I want to have it done by the end of 2024, which meant I was like laser focused. I canceled everything else. I stopped recording my podcast. I stopped taking clients. I had to pick a lane, and this was the lane. I was like, the book is the focus. And I think that's also really important, is that like we want it all and we can have it all. We just can't have it all at once sometimes. So you have to be really laser focused on what it is that you want and then just chip away every day. Writer's block is real. You're in your own way. It's like just get through the first manuscript and then go back. And I had editors and help. Like I hired help. That's also critical. I wasn't trying to do this all on my own. So yeah.
Yeah, birthing something like this is, the timing has to be right, but also you have to get out of your own way, is what you said. Some people are just like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm like, okay, but when? And Katie, you brought up a good point. You're like, actually, I said by the end of 2024, I either do it or I don't. And so clearly you did it, but we sometimes have to just get to it and also trust that we have enough. And how has your brand evolved over the last decade, from when you first started coaching, when you first started your training, till now? I know a lot in your personal life has changed. How has that affected your brand and your business?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm also on the cusp of another huge pivot and transformation. But when I first started, I was young, I was without kids, and my main focus was helping women who have been recovered from eating disorders, right? I'm not a licensed professional to be working with people who need help with eating disorders. I'm always very clear about that, and I will refer people out if I don't think they fit my practice. But people who have come out the other side and want to reintroduce themselves into the world in a healthy way while not obsessing about food, but also still want to put nourishing food in their body. Like that's our right. We should be educated on foods that are going to make us feel good and fuel our temple, but not in a really distorted way. So that was really kind of my focus at the start, because it was so kind of fresh coming out of recovery and really saying you can have recovery while also eating and being conscious about your health. That's still a beautiful thing to have. And it felt so polarizing, because in treatment with eating disorders, it was like it didn't matter about the quality of the calories. They were just trying to get calories in you, and they wanted you to sit still and super sedentary. And I've always been a really active person. It's been so good for my mental health. And so I just didn't really believe in that extremist of like, give them Big Macs and throw, these things that are clogging your arteries and making you have type 2 diabetes, because you can be really skinny and still be metabolically unfit. I think that's so important for people to know. And blood sugar management is everything. So I wanted to teach people that, how to balance your plate, how to eat in a way that's going to help fuel your body, build lean muscle, and feel good. And then as I started to kind of morph out of that, I really entered my 30s. I started having babies, and I started really putting a focus on helping women become pregnant. And so that was then my kind of rev 2 of helping people restore their periods. That's still kind of the camp that I'm in. People come to me with secondary amenorrhea. So they've had a period once, they lost it through stress, whether that's overexercising, unintentional undereating, kind of a combination of the two. They want to be pregnant in the near future. They need to restore their fertility. And I would say now where I'm at is in this place of helping women really feel empowered with the knowledge of, one, having a period is like a report card for how your body is responding to the outside world. So we want to be normalizing having healthy cycles and helping women to know how to respond to the phases of your cycle through nutrition, through diet, through lifestyle, through mindset, and not feeling shame when you're super hungry the week leading up to your period. We need to be eating more, right? So there's that general knowledge. And then entering into those years where you start to lose estrogen, like perimenopause, and how it's so critical to up the strength training because we lose muscle mass 3% every year, and really just empowering women on, fads that are out there a lot of times on intermittent fasting and things. What's going to work for you? So we do the testing. We're going to look at exactly what's going on with your body, not what you think, because we might think we're not super stressed, or we might think that things are balanced. We just want to look at labs objectively, look at what's happening in your gut microbiome and with your hormones, and tailor specific nutrition and exercise. More women need to be lifting more weights and eating more calories than they think. And again, I'm not recommending McDonald's. I'm very big on wholesome, nutrient dense foods, but not restricting. We need carbohydrates, we need adequate protein, and really just having this healthy, sustainable relationship with your diet and exercise, and knowing, less is more. It's okay to work out 3 days a week and you can still feel amazing. You don't have to kill it in the gym. It's okay, and you should go out to eat with your girlfriends and enjoy that spicy marg and some chips and salsa. You're not going to lose your track. Life is about so much more than just the food that we put on our plate. That's really important. But if you don't have kind of what I call your primary foods, which are everything other than the food, your spirituality, your relationships, your relationship with yourself, physical activity, finances, like these buckets in our life that are cumulatively can create a really big toxic load in our body, then the nutrition part really is secondary. It doesn't matter, because so much more about what we put on our plate, we don't even realize we're psychologically driven humans. But when those are imbalanced, you'll then be driven to want to drink more and eat more unhealthy to fill the void, right? So focus on the first part of kind of these buckets in your life of finding fulfillment in your career and moving your body and having friendships outside of just your relationship with your spouse. That's so important. Finding time for you, really find your inner knowing and your truth, and then watch how much easier it is to make empowering decisions on the plate, because you love your life so much that you want to fuel your temple to keep going, to feel good.
That is so good. Because what I'm hearing is that you've evolved with your client. You've also evolved with yourself, like your services and what you offer has evolved as naturally as your audience has evolved, as naturally as you speak from your own life experience. And that's a good permission slip to people who are listening. Like, okay, I started my business and we did X. I'm not really passionate about that anymore, but I guess I have to launch a whole new business to do this. And no, like
No.
you just have to know your people and keep
Yeah.
serving them over and over as they grow, as they evolve, as you grow and evolve as a person too. And I can just hear your passion in this of like, okay, I know what my lane is, I know what my training is, and I also know what I can speak on from experience. And I also want to just give an asterisk because our mission at Complum is to equip 10,000 women to feel inspired, resourced, and confident to do the thing that they're called to do, right? That's like a big point of our podcast, all our blogs, our services, etc. And we have so many allies, so people who don't identify as women who support that mission. And I want to remind you all of that. If you don't identify as a woman right now and you're just thinking, oh, Praise and Katie are talking about hormones and female things, I want you all to listen. Just because you have women in your life, you have friends, you have mothers, you have partners, and we need to be allies with people who are on this health journey too, because this applies to you all too, to be able to be the support systems, be able to be the people that they can rely on as they're figuring out, what do I need to be self-aware of the stresses in my life? Or if we can be a gentle nudge to be like, hey, actually, you need to listen to this podcast or check out Katie's book. I'm noticing there's some things in your life where I've seen you lit up before. And right now in your life circumstances, there's something off. There's something not it. And so this is just a little asterisk to our listeners who might not identify as women, that you have women in your life who need to show up as their full selves. And that oftentimes it's these stressors in our life and our body telling us that there are these stressors that we need to pay attention to. And thank God for angels here on earth like Katie, who are kind of giving us like a big poster sign saying like, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. How have you kind of seen that balance of the different support systems for the people that you support?
It's interesting because I was also going to put a nod in there that I have interestingly been getting more inquiries for men in my DMs for consultations because gut health is applicable and hormone health is applicable to men and women. I specifically specialize in helping women with understanding their cycles, and we have more hormones that are fluctuating at 4 different times throughout the month and or are flatlined and should be fluctuating. And so, not to say that I'm not an expert in male hormones, but I would rather refer out. I can read GI maps for men, and the same life tips that I was giving and the implications of chronic stress and diet and lifestyle apply to men and women and will destroy a man's gut as well. And so a man will definitely benefit from reading my book and can feel it. And gut health can manifest in so many different ways, right? From brain fog to anxiety, depression, to low energy, to stubborn weight gain, to skin issues, to allergies and food intolerances out of nowhere. So if you're feeling those things, please, reach out to someone because there's probably a high likelihood that there's an imbalance going on in your gut, and men and women deserve equal amount of help. And my husband specifically has been so supportive, and he's, gone through his own journeys too of feeling the implications of chronic burnout and what that has done to his blood pressure. I never want to be his wife and his coach, so I'll order the labs and then have him work with somebody else. But I see the same things that I see in women in terms of driving up high cholesterol from high stress, excess alcohol and caffeine consumption and things. So it applies to everybody. And if you are feeling off or sluggish, low energy, craving vitality in life, please reach out.
Yeah. Thanks for adding to that and kind of broadening.
You have to pick a lane on who you focus for, and it's my passion to work with women. But it's just funny that you brought that up because I have been getting a lot of inquiries from men specifically with ulcerative colitis or just chronic gut issues. Men experience stressors too, in different ways. They have different stressors that they worry about in terms of whatever's going on in their life, or if they're kind of more of the household kind of glue holding that together. So we all internalize stress differently. And yeah, my husband has been a huge support system for me. My brother is, just kind of to get back to your question, because I kind of dodged it just to bring up that one point on inclusivity, but my brother is he's as conventional as it gets in terms of the Western medicine. He's a dentist, and he's brilliant, and he's really good at what he does. So we kind of go back and forth and head to head because he thinks I'm kind of a quack being in the functional space. And don't get me wrong, I think there's absolutely a time and a place for Western medicine. It saves lives. My whole philosophy, if you're not familiar with functional medicine, is we find the root cause to your symptoms rather than symptom treat with medication, to eventually say, okay, there's a reason for why you're feeling why you feel, and the body is all one connected system. So let's not just look at your endocrine system or your thyroid or your gut. Let's look at it holistically and treat it at the root cause. And I think more men need to be educated on how to help women and be empowered on helping them with their phases of their cycle. My husband and I still kind of go at it in terms of, the shifts that happen to a woman when they're in different phases. It's real, from hormonally to just energetic needs, wanting to be social the first half, really wanting to be inward and reflective that second half. So the more that your man can kind of be educated on just an overview of, one, it's normal for things to fluctuate. They should be fluctuating 4 different times throughout the cycle. And how he can help support you, it will help your relationship tremendously. Just with, when not to ask for sex because there's no libido, right? Those things matter. It puts strains on relationships. It's not just sometimes a woman not wanting it, That's important to know too. There's hormones that drive that. Just same with men. But I would say typically I see more, the libido is suppressed in women.
What an important thing we should have perhaps learned in school,
Right.
that we come prepackaged with it, and we need more understanding around it just so we can relate to people better. Also give more grace to other people and ourselves more, which I know that both of us, we are so passionate about women and women living really these full lives. And from you coaching a lot of women, what are common systems or constructs that lead to an unintegrated life? What are these commonalities that we see? I know there's a woman listening who's like, oh my gosh, Praise and Katie are talking to me. They're calling me out. I'm already
Yeah.
working at a place where I feel really stressed, or I'm already in a relationship that might be toxic. Are there things that go unnamed that we can on this podcast name, or even give women tools like questions they can ask themselves to find those systems or constructs that are leading to unintegratedness, so that we can help our listeners live a more passionate, vibrant, thriving life? What are those things in your opinion?
Yes, so good. So I always say if people feel that they are completely disassociated, right? Their mind and their body, they've just kind of been living what I call autopilot, busy woman syndrome, just like rushing through the day without ever checking in with yourself. It's just pure autopilot. It's like driving to a location that you know how to do. You don't even think. And the scary part about that is eventually you either do or don't wake up decades later and say, what happened to my life? So the first thing you can do is really allow yourself even 5 minutes of time where you have uninterrupted quiet time and space, where I prefer journaling, because I think our brain is like taking out the trash. It needs to be emptied on a daily basis, ideally. And there's so much power, and there is something that is stimulated when the pen hits the paper. If typing is more therapeutic for you, but really allowing yourself to figure out what and where you feel that state of flow, right? That state of ease, that when you're doing this thing, that don't worry about it having to be monetizable or anything. It's just when you're doing this thing, whether you're talking to someone or you're in a scenario or a situation, and you feel that time has gone by, hours could go by and you wouldn't even know. That's your state of flow. That's what you desire to be doing more of, surrounding yourself with more of, whether that's a career change or a move. So that's to help you find, just in general, cultivate some self-awareness. If you have self-awareness in terms of the things that are causing the distress, whether it's a circle of friends that you have to ditch, boundaries you need to put around family, leave a job, you name it, start the business, write the book, it. The best permission I can give you is to find an accountability partner or someone, a coach, hire somebody. You can create a vision board and put that on there and declare when you're actually going to do it and follow through. Like, there will be no person that's going to come and give you that permission, unfortunately. So you just need to decide to do it and say, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Let's say it flops. I promise you that you will be more proud and feeling accomplished and less regretful, rather than continuing to go along in autopilot, disassociating, feeling the stress, to, God willing, this doesn't happen, but some sort of chronic disease hits the fan, where that's going to be the wake up call that you say, I'm turning my life around. Like, don't wait till that happens, because that is unfortunately what happened with me and so many of my close friends and family. Is it takes a health crisis to turn your life around. Life is so precious. Our time is so limited here, and it's the one resource that we just can't get back. And so if you're living a life where you're like, I'm just ready to make a change in some way or another, just try, just take the chance. And if it doesn't work, everything is figure outable. You can always go back to the job eventually if that's what needs to happen. But put some contingencies and parameters in place, have a safety net of savings, and just go for it. You're going to be so proud of yourself, and you will not look back and regret it.
That is so good. Yeah. So if you are listening to this podcast and you realize you've been on autopilot, or as professionals like to say, you've been disassociating, that you are shutting off these sirens that are going off because you just don't want to hear it. If you've been in that phase of life, we encourage you to just pause, pay more attention, get an accountability partner, and write yourself a permission slip of like, okay, these things that I actually truly love that I've been denying, these things where I am in flow, where I can just be in my element, do this thing that I'm called to do. Give yourself permission to do more of that. Put it on a vision board. Just do the thing. And we can encourage you, as people who have been on the other side of living a life on autopilot, that it's better on this side, that it's
Yeah.
scary. Yes, it doesn't have to be so risky. You can have parameters around it, but give yourself permission and the chance to try it and to do it and to give yourself another option instead of just living this disassociated life.
Totally. It's like objectively saying, what's the worst that's going to happen? Truly write that out, because if you don't, your mind is already thinking these things to protect you, and it will eventually suffocate you to block you from making the decision. Same with limiting beliefs. Put them on paper, then look in the right-hand column for validating proof that those things actually have happened. And you find out, oh, those are actually just things I've believed about myself with no proof. Do the same about this exercise. Pick one stretch goal or thing that you want to change. Don't try to uproot and change your whole life. Pick one thing, whether it's career, one thing that has been really nagging on you, because I promise that nag will never go away. It will just get louder. So you might as well address it. And if you need to, find a mentor, someone who has gone before you in this endeavor, and pick their brain, shadow them, just immerse yourself in the knowledge. Even that, giving yourself more time will fill your cup. Just starting that first page of that book, you're going to start feeling more fulfilled. That's going to be addicting for you to want to go back the next day and do a little bit more. It's all about just these baby steps. And the last thing I'll say too, on if you do feel disassociated, a really helpful tip that I give my clients is I call it the 3 anchor rule. So we all have kind of 3 anchors throughout the day, whether we think it or not, that are normally constructed around mealtime. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Those are pretty consistent for at least me. Always giving myself those 3 meal times. And so what you can do is first thing in the morning, giving yourself 3 deep breaths to really come inward and figure out, what it is that you need for that day, an intention, a prayer, the journal, an exercise, something that makes you feel like you're you in your most authentic alignment. And then things might hit the fan at work and the morning goes by. And rather than spiraling and allowing you to completely forget everything you forgot in that moment in the morning, you have a chance again in lunchtime to do the same thing, just 3 deep breaths. All you need to do is just come back like, where's my mind? Where's my body? Where's my mind? Where's my body? And eventually they'll come together. And that's it. It's just a moment to get your power back. And then again, you can do it at dinner. It's this little simple 2 minutes to keep repetition on teaching yourself how to not disassociate and to come back into your own body and to just reclaim your power, because we have the power to do that. It's just so often we forget and we spiral out of control, and oops, we lost a day. Oops, we lost a day in the gym. Now it's a week. Now it's a month. Now it's a year. It's really easy to get off the bandwagon. So just a little tip, you can do the 3 anchor rule.
We love the 3 anchor. Well, you mentioned that oftentimes we need to find people who are a few steps ahead of us. And I know that a lot of people who are listening to this interview will want to connect with you. How can they find you online? How can they find your podcast? How can they find your book?
Yes. So you can find my book on Amazon. It's Fix Your Gut, Transform Your Life. And I am on Instagram at Ditch the Scale. And I'm always over there hanging out. My podcast and my website, I'll link up as well. Those are under my business unit, which is The Real Raw You, which is my business formed under the premise of really helping you become the real raw version of yourself, and how when we become misaligned, all of these health issues and nutritional gaps really form. It's at the kind of genesis of who I am. And the Real Raw You Instagram handle was not available. So I had to get a little clever with something else. But I also encourage all clients to throw away the scale, because it actually tells you nothing about your health. It doesn't tell you about your gut health, your muscle composition, and everything that you want to know about your health, to have longevity and to live a really long, healthy, robust, vibrant life, is not found on the scale. So it only just messes with your mind. So if there's one tip, you can throw away your scale, and there's many other metrics you can dive into at your fingertips to really get a true assessment of your total health and longevity that will make you feel more empowered than the scale.
Thank you so much for being real and raw on this podcast today, Katie. It was an honor to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was such an honor, and I loved our chat.